Lagos, where secrets drowned beneath the noise of celebration, Sarah's heart raced louder than the talking drums outside. She had promised her husband Mark a quiet Sunday night. But here she was, trapped between vows whispered in sacred halls and desires she never knew she harbored. "Auntie Sarah, you're too fine to be walking these hotel halls alone," Emeka said softly. "Are you afraid?" "Nobody would know," Toby had said with a grin. The wedding was supposed to be a celebration of love, but for Sarah it became a burial ground for her promises. Now, as the city wakes, so does her guilt. Because in Lagos, nothing stays hidden for long, not even in the shadows of the morning. The wedding invitation arrived embossed with gold. The names of the bride and groom, Tolu and Kemi, etched in cursive, shimmering under the Lagos sun. Sarah read it aloud to Mark while he scrolled through his phone, only half listening. "Babe, it'll be fun. A night away from the kids. Just us," she'd said, brushing her fingers across his arm. Mark looked up, his face softening. "I'd rather stay home, but if it's important to you, let's go." But fate had other plans. The night before the wedding, their babysitter canceled. Mark sighed with relief, secretly glad to stay back with the kids. Sarah, however, was determined. She'd promised Tolu she'd be there. "I'll make it up to you on Sunday night," she whispered, kissing Mark's forehead before leaving. The wedding was set in a lush event center in Victoria Island, its canopies adorned with flowing Azo-Oke fabrics and floral arrangements bursting with hibiscus and sunflowers. Yoruba drums beat softly in the distance, blending with the DJ's Afrobeats playlist. Laughter floated in the air, mingling with the rich aroma of jollof rice, fried meat, and fresh zobo. Sarah arrived alone, feeling a strange emptiness that contrasted the vibrant celebration. She was seated at a table filled with younger couples, mostly in their mid-20s. Men with fresh fades and tailored agbadas, women in shimmering gele tied high like crowns. She felt out of place. Then she met them, Emeka and Toby. Both charming, both dangerous in different ways. Emeka had a dimpled smile that lingered too long, while Toby's confidence filled the space like perfume. They laughed easily, poured her more palm wine than she needed, and made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt in years. The music grew louder, the lights dimmer. One dance turned into two, one sip turned into five. By 9:30 p.m., Sarah found herself outside the tent, lips locked with Emeka, her back pressed against the cool metal poles. Moments later, she found herself near the portable toilets with Toby, tasting the same thrill, the same recklessness. She should have stopped there. But the night had other plans. In Lagos, where secrets drowned beneath the noise of celebration, Sarah's heart raced louder than the wedding drums. She had promised her husband, Mark, a quiet Sunday night. But here she was, trapped between vows whispered in sacred halls and desires she never knew she harbored. The men flanked her as they walked down the hotel corridor, their whispers slicing through the drunken fog in her mind. "Nobody would know," Toby had said with a grin. And those words became the nail in the coffin of her judgment. The door clicked shut behind them. The night unraveled like cheap lace, fast, messy, and impossible to repair. The sharp Lagos sun didn't bring clarity. It brought exposure. Sarah awoke alone in the tangled sheets, the stale scent of regret clinging to her like sweat. Her head throbbed, but it wasn't the hangover. It was guilt. She stared at her reflection in the cracked hotel mirror. Her makeup was smudged, her geode long gone, and her wedding ring still firmly on her finger. A cruel reminder of everything she'd just shattered. Packing her things felt mechanical, like her body was moving but her soul had stayed behind in that disheveled bed. The drive back to the mainland was suffocating. The bustling streets of Lagos, usually alive with vibrant chaos, felt eerily quiet inside her car. Did I really do that? She kept asking herself. She thought about Mark, his steady presence, his laugh when the kids did something silly, the way he absent-mindedly rubbed her back while watching football. She thought about her children. The urge to confess burned like pepper in her throat, but fear swallowed it whole. When she walked into the house, Mark greeted her with a tired smile, juggling the twins on his lap, while cartoons played in the background. "How was the wedding?" he asked casually, not even looking up. Sarah's throat tightened. "It was fine," she croaked, forcing a smile. But that smile couldn't mask the storm brewing inside her. Days passed. She became distant, lost in a battle between confession and concealment. Mark noticed. "Sarah, what's wrong?" he finally asked one night, his eyes soft but searching. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Just tears, hot, bitter tears of guilt. Mark pulled her close, thinking it was stress, never suspecting the truth. And that was the worst part, because sometimes the weight of what you don't say crushes you more than the words ever could. In Lagos, secrets don't just fade, they linger. Stolen glances, forced smiles, and silent regrets. Sarah's story isn't just about betrayal, it's about the echoes of choices made in the dark, and the shadows they cast in the morning. The house was quiet, except for the distant hum of Mark's football commentary from the living room. Sarah stood in the laundry room, mechanically sorting clothes, trying to push past the weight that had settled on her chest since the wedding. Then she felt it. Her fingers brushed against something stiff in the pocket of the emerald green dress she'd worn that night. She pulled it out, a hotel keycard. Her breath hitched. It wasn't from her hotel, not the one she had told Mark she stayed in. This was from the hotel where it happened. A wave of nausea washed over her. How could she have been so careless? She had made sure to delete the messages, clear the call logs, erase any trail. But this was evidence. A cold sweat broke out on her forehead. "Sarah, babe, where's my white shirt?" Mark's voice cut through the silence like a knife. She spun around, stuffing the keycard into her palm just as Mark walked into the laundry room, rolling up the sleeves of his casual navy blue caftan. "What's that?" he asked, nodding toward her clenched fist. Sarah swallowed hard, her mouth suddenly dry. "Oh, just trash from the wedding." She turned slightly, angling her body away as she reached for the laundry basket, but Mark's curiosity didn't waver. Before she could stop him, he reached out and plucked the keycard from her hand. Her stomach dropped. He studied it, flipping it over in his fingers. The logo was unmistakable. Eden Grand Hotel, Toria Island. "Wait, didn't you say you stayed at Mainland Suites?" he asked, his brows knitting together in mild confusion. Sarah felt a sharp pulse of panic in her chest. She had rehearsed so many lies in her head in case Mark ever suspected anything. But now, standing under the blinding fluorescent light, she felt exposed, caught, cornered. I switched at the last minute," she stammered, forcing a small laugh. Mainland Suites was overbooked. Eden Grand was closer anyway. Mark didn't respond immediately. He just stared at the keycard. A long, heavy silence stretched between them. Then, finally, he shrugged. "You should have told me. I was worried about you that night." Sarah exhaled, relief crashing over her. She reached out, casually plucking the keycard from his fingers and tossing it into the laundry basket. "It was no big deal," she said, trying to keep her voice light. "Now, go find your shirt before the kids spill juice on themselves again." Mark chuckled and walked away. But as she turned back to the laundry, her hands were shaking. She had dodged a bullet. For now. Sarah was chopping tomatoes in the kitchen when her phone buzzed from the counter. She almost ignored it, expecting a bank alert or one of those endless "Good morning, Ma" messages from her church group. But something in her gut told her to check. She wiped her hands on a towel and picked up the phone. One new message. Unknown number. She opened it. "Had a great time last weekend. Miss that smile. Toby." The knife slipped from her fingers, clattering onto the cutting board. Her breath hitched. "No, no, no, no!" Her pulse pounded in her ears as she stared at the screen. Why would he message her? Hadn't they agreed? No calls, no texts, no contact? She had made it clear she needed distance. Her hands trembled as she quickly deleted the message, then blocked the number. But the damage was already done. "Everything okay?" Sarah's head snapped up. Mark was standing at the doorway, watching her with quiet curiosity. His eyes flicked to the phone still clutched in her hand. She forced a smile, heart slamming against her ribcage. Yeah, just spam. Mark didn't say anything right away. He walked into the kitchen, grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge, and leaned against the counter, watching her. Spam? He repeated, voice calm but probing. Sarah turned back to the cutting board, pretending to focus on the tomatoes. Yeah, you know how these random numbers send messages about loans and giveaways. She let out a small, forced laugh. It's so annoying. Mark took a long sip of water, his gaze still fixed on her. Sarah kept chopping, her mind racing. Had he seen the panic in her eyes? Did he hear the way her breath had caught in her throat when she read that message? Mark wasn't the type to snoop. He trusted her. He always had. But for the first time in their marriage, Sarah felt something shift. Something small, almost invisible. But there, a seed of doubt had been planted, and she had no idea how deep it would grow. The cafe was buzzing with soft conversations and the rhythmic clinking of spoons against ceramic cups. The scent of freshly brewed zobo and meat pies hung in the air, but Sarah barely noticed. Her hands gripped the glass of Chapman in front of her, the ice clinking as she stirred absent-mindedly. Opposite her, Ada leaned forward, her brows drawn in concern. "Babe, I saw you at the wedding," she said, her voice low but firm. "With those guys." Sarah's heart slammed against her ribs. She forced a laugh, waving a hand dismissively. "Oh, that? It was just drunk fun." Ada didn't smile. "Drunk fun doesn't make you look like this days later." Sarah's fingers tightened around her glass. "Like what?" "Like you've seen a ghost," Ada said, tilting her head. "Or like you're trying to bury one." The words hit Sarah harder than she expected. She looked away, pretending to check her phone, but her thoughts were spiraling. Ada had always been sharp, too sharp. The kind of friend who could read a lie in a heartbeat. "Look, it's nothing," Sarah said finally, forcing another smile. "I drank too much, danced too much, that's all." Ada stared at her, unblinking. "Did you sleep with them?" Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She let out a nervous laugh, shaking her head. "Ada, please, you're overthinking." "I saw you leave with them." Silence. Sarah's grip on her glass faltered. The air between them grew thick, suffocating. Ada sighed, leaning back in her chair. "Look, I'm not here to judge you, but whatever happened that night, I can see it's eating you up." Sarah swallowed hard. She couldn't do this. Not here. Not now. She stood abruptly, grabbing her purse. "I should go. Mark's waiting for me." Ada didn't stop her. She simply watched as Sarah walked out, shoulders stiff, pace hurried, as if running from a truth she wasn't ready to face. That evening, Mark sat on the couch, his phone in his lap, watching Sarah as she moved around the living room. She was folding laundry, her hands methodical, but he noticed the small things. The way her shoulders tensed every time her phone buzzed, the way she avoided eye contact when he asked about her day. He hadn't wanted to suspect her. He hadn't wanted to be that kind of husband, the one who checked phones, who doubted, who second-guessed. But something wasn't right. And now, for the first time in their marriage, he felt a quiet but persistent urge to dig deeper. While Sarah was in the shower, he hesitated for only a second before picking up her phone from the nightstand. Locked, of course. He sighed, setting it back down. Maybe he was overthinking. Maybe Sarah was just stressed. But then he remembered the hotel keycard. He pulled out his own phone, typing in the name Eden Grand Hotel, Victoria Island. He scrolled through the website, his mind churning. Then something caught his eye. A small disclaimer at the bottom of the page. For security purposes, hotel lobby and hallway footage is retained for up to 30 days and is available upon request to verified guests. Mark's pulse quickened. His fingers hovered over the contact button. He hesitated. Did he really want to go down this road? But then he thought about Sarah's nervousness. The way she had clutched that keycard. The way she had dismissed his questions too quickly, too smoothly. He clenched his jaw. Then, with a deep breath, he tapped the number and pressed call. Mark sat in his car outside Eden Grand Hotel, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. The air conditioning hummed, but he still felt sweat trickle down his back. He had spent all day debating whether to go through with this, whether he really wanted the truth. But now, here he was. Taking a deep breath, he stepped out and walked toward the glass doors. The lobby was sleek, polished marble floors that reflected the golden light from the chandeliers above. A receptionist in a navy blue uniform greeted him with a professional smile. "Good evening, sir. How may I assist you?" Mark cleared his throat, forcing a polite smile. "I stayed here recently, and I may have left something behind. I was hoping to check the security footage to confirm when I left." The receptionist hesitated. "Normally, we require a formal request, but if you can provide proof of your stay, we may be able to assist." Mark slid his hand into his pocket, fingers closing around the key card Sarah had left in her purse. "I believe this should be enough." The receptionist examined it, then nodded. "One moment, sir." Mark's heart pounded as she disappeared into a back office. Minutes felt like hours. When she finally returned, she was accompanied by a security officer, a burly man with a stern expression. "Mr. Mark, correct?" the officer asked. Mark swallowed. "Yes." The officer gestured toward a hallway. "If you'll follow me, we can review the footage." Mark's legs felt heavy as he walked. This was it. Whatever happened that night, he was about to see it with his own eyes. They entered a dimly lit room lined with monitors. The officer tapped on a keyboard, pulling up a time-stamped video feed. "What date are we looking for?" Mark's throat was dry. "The night of the wedding, Saturday." The officer clicked through the footage. The lobby appeared on the screen, the timestamp reading 10:47 p.m. Mark leaned in. People were coming and going, some in traditional Nigerian wedding attire, others in suits and dresses. And then, Sarah. His breath caught. She stumbled through the entrance, not alone. Two men flanked her, their arms casually around her waist, their postures too familiar, too comfortable. Her head tilted back in laughter. Mark's stomach twisted. The footage fast-forwarded. Sarah at the elevator, one of the men pressing the button, while the other whispered something in her ear. She turned to him and kissed him. Mark felt like the floor had disappeared beneath him. The officer paused the video. "Would you like me to continue, sir?" Mark's jaw was tight, his body rigid. He should say no, he should walk away now, but he didn't. "Play it." The officer clicked again. Sarah stepped into the elevator, pulling one man inside, but not stopping the second from following. The elevator doors closed, and just like that, Sarah was gone. Mark's vision blurred at the edges, his chest rising and falling in slow, measured breaths. He had seen enough. He pushed back from the desk, his movement stiff. "Are you okay, sir?" the officer asked. Mark didn't answer. He simply stood, thanked them in a voice that didn't feel like his own, and walked out of the room, out of the hotel, out into the night. As he sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel once more, a single question burned in his mind. Did she know she was being watched? What happens next? Find out in the next part. Don't forget to like this video and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Also, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next.